how the different levels of government work. You know, you have local, state, and national. Right now, the national, federal level is the one who is setting policy on illegal immigration, and that filters down to the local level. But the local level is the one who's being impacted the most. And so it's important, I think, for us to work with our businesses to make sure that they understand what's required of them to make sure whoever they hire is here legally. I also think it's important for us at the local level to make our voice heard. You've heard the expression grassroots. That's what it's about. And I think those of us at the local level have to have that grassroots effort to keep the emphasis on the state, which keeps the emphasis on the federal level. We want this problem addressed, and we're interested in it, and we want to know what you're going to do about it, because the more we talk about it and the more we work on it, it isn't lost on the state and the federal level. They watch what's happening at the local level. So it's almost a symbiotic relationship in this situation between the local level and the federal level.
The Metro Council in Nashville is currently debating making English the official language of the city. Do you see a time when that could be brought up in Gallatin or become an issue here?
I don't think anytime soon. I really don't. We just don't have that problem yet. So if it's coming, I think it'll be a while. I think it'll be quite a while.
Now, in your other job, you've worked closely with the healthcare industry. How well do you think those needs being met in Gallatin, and is the city ready for population growth?
I think we're very fortunate in Gallatin. We have a wonderful hospital that has really strived to meet the needs of its citizens. I mean, we now have, you can have dialysis here in Gallatin. You used to have to go to Nashville. You can have some oncology treatments. You used to have to go to Nashville. So those are real services, I think, for our local citizens. Also, recently, Dr. Ted Hill opened the Salvis Center. And the Salvis Center is a clinic that will actually, if you can't afford health care, you can come in and you can get health care needs met. And it's based on ability to pay. They do charge, but they charge based on what they think you could help pay to offset the service. There have been physicians from the hospital and the surrounding communities who come in and offer services at the Salvis Center. So yes, I think probably we're one of the pilot communities as far as having a center like the Salvis Center, which is wonderful. As our population grows, I would expect the hospital to offer more and more services, and I would expect to see that Salvis Center expand. I would.
Before we fully leave the issue of immigration, speaking of health care, the illegal immigrants have put quite a strain on the infrastructure of the healthcare system. What do you think, having worked extensively in healthcare and in education and in state government, what do you think can be done either on a state or local level to combat that issue, that they're going in and they're able to get their treatment, as they should be treated, without stressing the infrastructure so badly?
Well, number one, I think you need to be here legally. I think we need to enforce that policy to make sure that we don't have people coming into our country illegally demanding services. I think we have to continue to work on that process. Number two, I think people have to pay and contribute to whatever services they want. And I really think, I've spent a lot of time talking about this issue with people that I've represented in the past. Everybody wants people to pay their fair share. I think if you pay your fair share, people object less. What they object to is somebody coming here and getting something for free when I'm paying the taxes for it. So I think it's real important that we make sure whatever services are being offered, that folks have to pay whatever they have the ability to pay. And I think it's also important that they pay the taxes that go along with some of these services. If they're going to be here for any length of time, I think they have to contribute also.
Now, you have served as a representative for the Nashville Women's Political Caucus. Tell us about that line of work.
The National Women's Political Caucus is a nonprofit organization, and it represents the interest of children and women and families. And this year I represented them, and we were able to get some far-reaching legislation passed, which I felt really good about, some issues that had been lingering there for a few years. And one of them was this issue of health care. And it was about women and their children being left without health care when they were going through divorces or separations. And we were able to get some legislation passed about them. But the Women's Political Caucus has been a leader on issues that affect families. And so it was great. It was a good opportunity, and I felt real good about my service.
Since we are here at Volunteer State Community College, what impact do you think young voters have on this election?
I think everyone always has an impact. I think everybody ought to vote. I think it's important for us to encourage young people to vote. And I can't really say at this point in time whether I believe young people have more of an influence on this race or not. Traditionally, they don't tend to vote nearly as much as people who are older. And I think it's more incumbent upon us to encourage them to vote and encourage them to learn the issues. And I'll tell you a funny story. When my daughter turned 18, and in our family, you can imagine, when you turn 18, you go vote. I mean, it's not a question. You've got to go vote. Don't come home if you didn't vote. So, but my daughter wanted to make up her own mind about who she was going to vote for. And she knew what my preferences were, my husband's. And she spent days on end going to all these candidates' websites, listening to what they had to say about the issues. And she didn't vote with me on every issue. You know, she made her mind up, and I just thought, you know, I wish every young person would take it quite this seriously. It is important to vote, because if you don't vote, you may have somebody representing you that you really aren't very happy about. And so one vote does make a difference. And elections can be won or lost on one vote. So it's important to vote.
What have you personally done to reach out to the younger crowd?
When I was in office, I spent a lot of time going to the schools. Matter of fact, it wasn't very often if somebody called me and said, would you come out and speak to a class, that I didn't go. We also had a job shadowing program down at the legislature, and those were particularly college students, and they would come and job shadow us to learn the process. But I think it's as important to just be a good role model, to show people that it is professional to be in public office. There's a lot of responsibility, that you impact people's lives in ways that you probably never would in any other arena that you're going to ever work in. So I think it's important for kids to be involved.
Definitely.
Now, on November 7th, Election Day, why should the people of Gallatin vote JoAnn Graves for mayor?
And I don't think that was on that sheet.
Well, now, if you
But
can't answer
I'm happy to answer it. I thought, she's sneaking one in. I think it's important for people to vote for JoAnn Graves, because we are talking about the future of Gallatin. You know, this race isn't about Democrats, and it's not about Republicans. It's about the citizens of Gallatin, and it's about what we want Gallatin to be in the future. And it's about the legacy that we're going to leave our children and our grandchildren. And I believe my list of accomplishments and my experience will help me take Gallatin to the next level, and that's where we're poised to go. So I hope you will vote for JoAnn Graves.
Where do you see Gallatin a few years from now?
I see Gallatin a few years from now. Oh, I'll paint a picture for you.
A pretty one.
A pretty one. Let's say that we're coming in and we're in a helicopter and we're flying over Gallatin. And as we come in, one of the very first things we see is the lake. I see developments along the lake. I see recreational areas along the lake that we currently don't have. Mm-hmm. As you come farther into Gallatin, I think you see the road system. You see 386. And more than that, you see 109 South, connecting 5 lanes all the way to Interstate 40. That's on the drawing board. It's just a matter of us pushing to make it happen. As you come a little farther in, I see the retail centers, and I see wonderful restaurants. I see probably some new hotels, because we're growing. And as you come into our downtown area, I see a revitalized area with a greenway that is connecting into the downtown and around our city, that maybe has stops, has historic markers by some of our historic homes, might have recreational and nature areas for children to stop and learn. And as you come into the downtown, you see the library, and you see young children, all those preschoolers who are downtown in all the churches, coming in and out of the library because they've been there for story time, and because they've been exposed to the library and to the book.